everyone, I'm Bria, here to share more stories and ideas about self-directed education and unschooling based on my experiences as an unschooler growing up and my experience as a parent in an unschooling self-directed education family right now. One thing that I always share when talking about self-directed education is that it is super important to have a community. Self-directed education and unschooling is based in community. That community can look really different depending on the person, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I want to say that the reason I bring up community is because it's one of the top issues that people think about when they're questioning self-directed education. What about socialization? How will your kid make friends? How will they learn how to be with people? It is valid that when you are in self-directed education, you have to make more of an effort to find community than if you just send your kids to school, at least for your kids. Because when you send your kids to school, they're going into this community that's already laid out for them. It's already there, and you don't necessarily have to worry about actively finding them friends. They are finding those people at school. Now, I would argue, of course, that I don't think conventional schools are healthy communities in any way for anyone involved, but that's a different topic. It is a place where they can engage in sports, clubs, all those things, and make friends. But when you are choosing to take your kid out of that conventional school, then you do have to intentionally find, build, create, or join community. That is a huge part of this. So I always make sure to talk about it. But the type of community that someone needs and is really interested in is going to be different for every single person, every single family, even between siblings. It can sometimes be very different. So I'm going to share a little bit about how it looked for me growing up, and then how it looks for my stepson now, and kind of how we came to this place of realizing how different we are. So growing up, I attended a homeschool resource center, and there were a lot of classes that I could opt into taking. Now, I want to be clear that my parents did not send me here because they wanted to make sure I took a bunch of classes and made sure to learn the basics. It was just a place for me to have the chance to take the classes that I wanted to. So for example, I took Spanish, I started a Spanish club, I took art classes, musical theater, dance. You can see the theme here and what I was into, but I chose all of those classes. And honestly, it was more of a chance for me to have a community and other kids to be around away from my parents, away from adults. So I think a lot of the time I spent there were really just being with my friends and doing different things with them. I would take a class or two in the morning, a class in the afternoon, and all that time in between was just like hanging out, exploring, being with my friends and my community, and options to just try a bunch of new things. And I loved trying new things. I went to summer camps as much as I could and we could afford. I went to tennis lessons. I went to a dance studio for a while. I went to a Aikido dojo. I went to a karate dojo when I was older. I loved finding new things and jumping in and meeting new people and being in new situations. I still love that. Also, a lot has changed, but I wanted and thrived off of finding the new activities and joining them. I cannot stress enough that like when those recreation center magazines came out, I would go through and circle every single thing I was interested in. Even when I went to my homeschool resource center, when they had like weeks where they had special workshop weeks, I can't remember what they were called, but it was like 1,000 different activities that we could choose from, and I just circle everything and go to as much as I could. That was me. That is not rated, and that is 100% normal, valid, and okay. A decade or two, and I wrote about this in an article as well, so I will link to that so you can read more about my experience compared to my stepson's experience and how things have changed now that I'm a parent of someone who's very different than me, because we're all very different people, right? But he came here, he moved in with us, and we decided to unschool. And we decided to unschool in a brand new city that me and my partner had only lived in for 2 months. And we didn't really know anyone, and we especially didn't know kids. And Raiden didn't want to go to the unschooling meetups. He didn't want to take the one-off art class. He didn't want to go to a new martial arts dojo. He didn't want to try out all these many exciting, I say exciting to me, things I loved when I was a kid and I would have jumped on, and I still kind of jump on. He was not interested. New situations with new people he didn't know are not his thing. And part of that was definitely school trauma, and part of it is his personality. So what he needed, as we figured out, was immersion in a stable, known, supportive, self-directed environment with people he knew, a community he was used to, and he needed a situation that was more predictable. That was really important. Anyways, so we needed a situation that was more predictable for him, that fit those needs. We found a self-directed education center here that did that. I just want to be really clear that especially as parents, we need to respect how introverts relate to other people when they want to interact, if they want to interact. Just because I think community is super important for everyone, because I think we do need interaction and people, whether we're introverts or extroverts, I think it's a human need. But just because I believe that that's really important in self-directed education does not mean that you should force your introverted child or any child to interact when they don't want to. They also know what they need. They know what that looks like. And just how we wouldn't force them to take a class they're not interested in or learn a new hobby that they don't care about, we wouldn't force them to interact when they don't want to or in ways they don't want to. Oh my gosh, my brain just went completely blank. There are so many ways for people in self-directed education to find, build, and create community, ranging from super formal structures where you're enrolled in a private SDE school to super informal structures where friends, neighbors, family members exchange time and care for one another's children. So I'm going to list a bunch of resources, and just know that most of what I share, you can find more information about this in the links below. So you have options to join things or create things. Just know that everything I list here, you could either make it your own or find this option in your area if it exists. There are co-ops, there are registered private schools, there are homeschool resource centers, there are community centers. There's local self-directed education groups, which are something that the Alliance for Self-Directed Education actively supports. There are flying squads, which is like a group facilitator with a group of kids out in the city, so you don't actually need a building over your head for that one. It's really a low entry point. You can have informal meetup groups. There's a lot of unschooling groups on, not my favorite platform, but Facebook or other areas where you can just find informal meetups, people offering classes specifically for unschoolers, or maybe a mix of more conventional homeschoolers and unschoolers. There are kids in your neighborhood. There are families where you can set up care exchange. For example, maybe you have 3 families and each family has kids for 2 days a week, giving the other families 4 days a week free without their kids, if that's what you need to work. Or if that's what your kids need to be with other people. There's so many options, and I do recognize that even with all these options, there is an accessibility issue with people who may not have one parent working from home, single parents, people who don't make a lot of money. There's definitely accessibility difficulties, but a lot of SDE centers are also offering sliding scale tuition to better meet those needs, and there's a lot of ways to involve your family members, involve your community, involve elders, so that we're not having to pay out money we don't have, and we can share responsibility for caring for children. As your kids get older, they don't necessarily need an adult around all the time, so that helps too. I do also want to mention online community, because I think online community can offer a lot. And there are so many options for that. There are gaming communities, there's Discord, there's social media, there's so many platforms I don't know about. And I think that offers a lot. Right now, Raiden's getting tons of interaction online, and he's really thriving on gaming with his friends online. I'm getting tired of interaction online, but I don't want to downplay online community because I think it's really important. But I think in-person community is not something that can be replicated, and it's also an important piece of the puzzle. So it's really something we need to think about when we're considering self-directed education. And also one of the beautiful things about the unschooling self-directed education lifestyle is that you aren't attached to a school's schedule or regulations. It gives you so much more freedom to kind of shift things based on your family's needs. So like for us, this lifestyle gives us so many opportunities to change our situation and adapt when things aren't working. I mean, the pandemic is a perfect example for this. It's hard for everyone, but I think because of our situation, we were already used to being with Raiden a lot of the time. We enjoy being with him. It was easier for us to adapt. He's upstairs right now. He's been home, and it's not an ideal situation, but it's working for us and it's temporary. While I don't think it's the ideal situation for any of us, this year hasn't been the ideal situation for most people. And I keep reminding myself that as long as he and I and my partner, all of us are happy and healthy and doing okay and supporting each other and communicating, then that's enough. And that means our situation is enough for us and to take care of our needs right now. And I always remind myself that you can try things out, you can shift your situation, and it doesn't have to be permanent, and it can be iterative and changing based on your family's needs and your individual needs and how those coincide and work together. Okay, so that's how building and finding community works for us, both right now and in general. And I'm just really interested in how you all build community within unschooling and self-directed education. What does it look like for you? What are you struggling with? What are you really excited about? What are you questioning or wondering right now? Please share in the comments, or you can leave me a message, whatever you'd like. And as always, let me know what other videos and topics you'd like me to cover, and I'll see you soon.